But in this case, we chopped a lot and we have made a bit of a thrust through, but it's a bit lackluster overall. So I am actually thinking of closing this trade now and not continuing. I'm just not that confident in this trade. So I am probably going to close this out. And if we do end up moving much higher, fair enough, I missed all of that action and I'll just look for another entry. This might just be a bit of a fake out or something and we're going to fly up and then just come fly back down. Yesterday, I mentioned that I got into a long trade in this area here where we'd cleanly broken through this resistance and we'd rounded back and we'd retested as support. And then I went on to say that I wasn't confident in the trade because we just chopped sideways for quite a period and then we eventually did get this thrust through, but there just didn't seem to be much momentum behind the trade. And in those cases, I always lean towards closing the trade and taking a small profit because it can always come back on you very, very quickly. So I did end up taking a small profit once I'd finished the video yesterday, and many of you may know how it played out from there. So I'll just play it out and we can see that happened. So this is the exact reason that I was mentioning how I only want to be in the trade if there's momentum. So if I get in, I want to see us move away from the area into profit very quickly. I don't want to see a big drawdown because if I draw down a lot, that means my entry wasn't very good. And I don't want to see it chop either because if it's chopping, that means that the level that I'm looking to trade at isn't as strong as I thought. So in this case, it was the latter. The level just wasn't that strong. I thought it would be much stronger and I was wrong. It wasn't that strong and we chopped. And when we go sideways like this, quite often when this thrust comes in, it's a fake out. And I did mention that yesterday. And quite often from there, it will collapse. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And we collapsed down into this 91 area where we have a daily level. And if we play out the next few candles, we can see we had some indecision. And at this point, I decided to go long again because we had a few indecision candles. We were at this daily support level. It looked like a good time that we might be able to run it back up. And then I would have run it into the 95 area, which is this level here, which is the next trouble area after we get long. So if we play it out from here, we can see that this actually turned out to be a losing trade. And we came flying down and we knocked out my stop. But then at this point, I actually decided to crack this again long. This time, I decided to get long in this area here. Because we swung up into this high here, we swung away very nicely. We ended up breaking that resistance and we haven't yet come back to test it as support. And I've just taken this trade and got stopped out down here. And I decided I'll put another bid in at this swing high to see if we can touch that as support and see if we can move higher from there. So at this point, I put my stop down below this swing low. On the very next candle, the market came down and it took my bid and started to head higher nicely. And then from there, it turned out to be a very, very nice trade and it just ran up. And then look where it starts to stall. Right here in this area of congestion, the first trouble area after our trade. So of course, that's where I got out in that area of congestion because I don't want to hold it for any longer than I need to. And that's always going to be the area where the market is going to struggle. And in this case, we did end up going much higher on this very next candle. Of course, I didn't see any of that because I was already out the market. So you could say that I left some money on the table if you want to, but I think that over time, getting out in this congestion area will turn the best profit, the highest probability profits over time. And then of course, from there, we collapsed. And this is now real time. This is where we are. And we're back down into these lows. We're kind of coming down into this area to retest this support again. I'm not in a trade right now. I did take this loser yesterday, this small winner, and this nice winner. But at this point, I'm actually quite bearish. So we do have this sort of head and shoulders pattern that's forming on the hourly. So that's something to be aware of, that we could potentially break the neckline. The neckline would be like in this area, somewhere like that. It's very crudely drawn, but that would be the neckline. If we started to break that, potentially we could go short. So my strategy there would be, if we broke that, I would be looking to retest from below or even retest the support here and then head downwards. And then I would run it down into the next trouble area, which is going to be this low here. So that would be my strategy there if I was going to take that trade, if we do end up breaking this head and shoulders. But zooming out a little, beyond this head and shoulders, something else is making me quite bearish, which is if we look at here, we have this big collapse down here, and then this formation, which to me is starting to look like a bit of a bear flag. So we've come down like this, and then we're consolidating in the flag formation, which as it happens is also creating this head and shoulders, and the neckline of the head and shoulders also corresponds to the base of the flag. So overall, I think we are going to see some more downward action over the next day or so. How far down we go, I don't know, but I think we are probably going to make a run on these lows just to test them out, and then maybe we can break those and head lower. I don't know that. But me, like short term, I am quite bearish. And if we hop out onto the daily, so I'll just use a clean chart, so this isn't the Coinbase chart anymore, I'll use the Bitstamp chart. And another thing that's making me bearish is that we had this swing low, which is nice support. We broke through that support, and now we've come up to retest it as resistance. So I'll just draw a line on here, and we can see that we had this area of support that we bounced off of. We've broken cleanly through that, and now we're retesting it from the underside as resistance and starting to make some lows. So that's another bearish sign on the daily time frame that's making me think that we may see some further downward action. Then the next thing that I would look at is those wedges that we drew on the linear and the log chart on the daily yesterday. So I'll hop over onto the daily here and take a look. So right now we're in log mode, so it's the yellow wedge that's in play. So potentially what we could be seeing here is this bear flag playing out and the hourly head and shoulders. We break that, and we can head lower down to the 74 level, which was this resistance over here. We have the nice daily level there, and we did see a little bit of respect either side of this capitulation bottom. So we could potentially break this bear flag, this head and shoulders pattern, come down to the 74 level, and depending on how quickly we go, that could correspond with a test of this lower trend line, and then we could curve around and potentially break to the upside, and that would then break us out of this wedge. So maybe that's what we're going to see, and that's somewhat playing into the fractal pattern that I've been mentioning over the past few episodes, where we're copying the fractal that we saw here, where we topped, dropped, double topped, dropped, attempted to make a high, couldn't, and then just had this collapse. And here we've made a local top, we dropped, we double topped, just like we did up here. Then we dropped again, which would be like this. Then another attempt to move higher, which was that candle there. Another attempt to move higher, couldn't quite make it. And then a collapse. So that would be a smaller pattern that mimics this larger pattern that's played out. So that could be playing into that, this bear flag running us down to there. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And if we hop out onto the linear chart, again, we've got this bear flag that's running down the back of the linear trend line. So at this point, I'm quite skeptical about the validity of this linear line. So yesterday I did say that it could play out that we hop down this trend line. But honestly, it kind of looks a bit crude to me now, looking back. It just doesn't look quite as clean and elegant as the log wedge. But we could see this play out, but it looks quite steep, and I don't know. I'm going to keep it on the chart just because I've mentioned it, and we will monitor it because I may be wrong and this may be the way it plays out or whatever, and it may be a good indication of seeing where we are within the overall move. But for the most part, I'm going to stick with this log wedge. I think it looks cleaner And it also just gives us a bit more room to breathe with this bear flag. If we do break down, we're not right on top of the back of the linear line. Instead, we've got quite a lot of free area in this area of the log wedge. So that's pretty much all I'm thinking about today. And like I said, I might get into a trade if we can break the head and shoulders and retest. Then I might go short. But for now, I'm just watching how things play out. So until tomorrow's video, I will see you later.